Hello, my name is Alexandra Hendricks, and I was in Group 1 for Psych 376 this semester, and we decided to do our research topic on domestic abuse. Before I start the project, I would just like to say I thought it was really awesome doing something like this, having never done a research project before. I thought it was great having each aspect of the research project broken up every week to the research topic, the question, the coding table, method section, all that good stuff. I just thought it was really great that it was broken down, so then I personally got to see how research is done and all the steps it takes. So moving on from there, like I said, we did our project on domestic abuse, and it was something that our group kind of agreed on right away. It was something we wanted to learn more about, kind of get more information on, and plus most of the people in our group had a close family member or friend that actually suffered from domestic abuse, so that's why we decided to do our topic on this, to learn more about it. So moving on from there, at the beginning of the semester, when we picked our topic, we just decided on the best intervention methods and success rates for individuals who suffered from trauma and domestic abuse. So we kind of went off of that, and then from there we made some research questions, which I thought I would share from our poster. Under the introduction tab, we wanted to find out the best intervention methods used during a domestic dispute, and then what intervention methods are typically successful, if any of them are successful, and then what long-term and short-term effects of domestic abuse are. We also wanted to know how does domestic abuse affect future relationships, whether those relationships be a romantic partnership or just future relationships with people in general. How does that affect that with a person who's experienced domestic abuse? So we kind of wanted to figure out all those, and then in regards to future treatments, before and after, if treatments were successful, if you received any treatments. So we decided to use both men and women for this survey, not just women, but we wanted to specifically look at young to middle-aged adults for this survey, just because we wanted to see those people who had enough time in their life to actually go through domestic abuse, overcome it, or had some kind of experience. So that's why we picked that age range. So moving on from there, we looked at many different websites and articles and different research that was done online, and we saw that a lot of people in their research did surveys, online surveys, handwritten surveys on domestic abuse to give to participants to fill out. So we decided to make an online survey made up of 10 questions we made on Google Surveys website. And we left it open for a week's time during our midway through the semester, and we actually had 30 people take the survey, which was awesome because we got a really good range of results that we could analyze and go through. So kind of moving on to what we did in the methods section, like I said, we made the 10 question survey, and one of the first questions we wanted to do was just let people know that this was completely confidential. We don't ask for anyone's name, gender, age, anything like that. It was completely anonymous, and we just explained that we were using this research for our Psych 376 class for Indiana State, and that if they don't feel comfortable answering any of the questions, that they do not have to, and we just thanked them for their time and just kind of said like what this research, what the survey would go towards, which is our research. So you had to just hit accept or I don't accept, and from there, that was the only question that you had to answer. From there, they could answer each question at their own discretion. So some people chose not to answer certain questions. Some of them answered all of them, some not. It was completely up to them, but the survey was made up of different questions. Some were multiple choice, some was rate your experience on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, 1 being the least. Some were just write in your answer, fill in the blank. So it was a variety of questions because we wanted to make it really interactive. And like I said, it was only 10 questions long. So after we made that, we opened it on a Wednesday and then we closed it the Wednesday after. And like I said, we got 30 participants. The way we gave out this survey was we wanted to do it privately. I know a lot of people posted on social media like, please take this survey when you have time, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't want it to be like that. We know this is a very sensitive issue and we were asking some difficult questions that may be hard for some people to answer. So we wanted to do this privately. So those family members that we all had, we asked them privately if they would take it. And then we would send them the link privately and explain everything to them. Some friends of friends that we had in our group, we sent it to them, but everything we did privately. So then everything kind of stayed contained because we just didn't want to openly promote this. We wanted just to do it in a more respectful manner. But like I said, we ended up getting 30 participants, which was awesome. So moving on to what we found from the survey after we closed it, when we made our results section, we went through all the results, and some surprised me and some didn't. If you look at our poster, we actually made a table of one of our first questions, which was something I created, was experienced abuse. So obviously, what kind of abuse did you experience? Was it psychological, emotional, physical, or all the above? So actually, over 60% exactly, answered all the above. So those participants out of that 30 experienced either a little bit of each, or some combination of the three, where only 7% just experienced physical abuse, 13% just experienced emotional, and 20% just experienced psychological. So the majority of people actually experienced all three. I feel like sometimes when you think about domestic abuse, you only think about the physical side. A lot of people don't think about the psychological and the emotional, but that's something that's obviously still there and something that a lot of people experience. So that was what we made our table on and kind of talked about in our results section. Some other things that we talked about was sometimes the best help for those who are abused comes from close family members, close friends, family members' children, mom, dad. Some people also said that religion helped them a lot get through their experience. Some people also said getting into a healthy relationship with a new spouse helped them get over that bad past experience, past relationship. Something I found interesting was so like I said, most people go to friends and family. That's who they turn to. But only half of our participants, only 15, sought out some kind of therapy or counseling. And from that half, which was 15 people, half of the 15 said it was effective. The other half said it wasn't, which really surprised me because I thought a lot of people would seek therapy. But obviously only half of the people who participated did, and only half of that said that it was effective for them to get over their past. So that I found kind of interesting. And then we also wanted to figure out the best intervention methods for people who suffered from domestic abuse and try to figure out what people did after being abused. How did they cope with that? How did they cope with what happened to them, and how did they move on from there? And we found that from our study, intervention methods are not they don't always exist for those who it's not as easy as what it seems. Like there's not just one intervention method that works for everyone. Everyone is different, and no one's domestic abuse is the same as the next person's. So everyone deals with domestic abuse in a different way and has different forms of abuse that they suffered from. So in return, they all have to cope with it differently. Some people experienced more domestic abuse than others, so it was harder for them to get over it, and everyone's way to get over it was different. So it wasn't just one cut and dry thing, which we found was interesting too. Some other things that we found, let me see here. And then another thing that we kind of talked about was people are not really quick to seek help from random individuals, which I kind of understood after we did this, because some people are embarrassed. They don't want to air out their dirty laundry. They don't want to talk about things with a stranger. They'd rather deal with it with a close family friend or relative that may have actually gone through something similar themselves or knows how to help them get through it and knows them better. So that we found as well. One of the statistics that we found was 7 out of the 26 people said that family and friends helped them, while only 3 said that therapy helped them, which kind of ties back into only half the people sought out therapy and only half of that half thought it was effective. So not a lot of people thought that therapy and counseling was effective in this survey. Being a counseling minor, I thought that was really interesting. And I wish that, honestly, we had more outreach programs for these people to get help, because maybe it would help more people if they actually had the help right there and more resources to get that help, rather than having to deal with it on their own, or if they don't have a lot of family or friends having to deal with it on their own. So I just thought that was really interesting. And kind of just to tie this all in together, in conclusion, one big thing my group learned was domestic abuse is definitely not a cut and dry issue. It's something that is very broad. It's a very sensitive issue to explore, so you have to be careful when going through and doing research like this. You have to be very considerate of people's feelings and kind of understand what they're dealing with. And then when it comes to therapy and coping, I mean, not one thing helps every single person. Everyone's different. So there's combinations of, either therapy and help, or from family and friends, or just family, just friends. Everyone's was different. And so I feel like everyone's experience is different, so getting over that experience and coping with it is going to be different as well. So that's another big thing that we learned. And ultimately, we just found that domestic abuse covers so many different scenarios. It's somewhat sensitive to explore, like I said. So you just have to be careful when doing research like this. But I know my group was really glad we did this. We learned a lot about domestic abuse and just coping methods and how individuals got over that abuse. And just one of the last questions we put was just like if you could give any advice to someone, or if you had any extra comments to add. And some people had some really interesting things to say, so that was really neat to see. But I'm really glad we did this topic. Like I said, I learned a lot about domestic abuse, but then I also learned how to do research topics like this, and actually the right way to go through the steps to figure out how to solve a question you have at the beginning and get an end result, which was really awesome. So I was really glad that we did this, and that was our poster. So thank you very much.